All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Couch Experts podcast. This is the week 3 edition. Today, we're going to be talking about, in my opinion, a really dominant Wyoming win. I am your co host, Zane Alley. Again, I am joined by Mr. Jamari Moore. Jamari, you are coming off a fun filled weekend, man. Tell us a little bit about it. I know one of your best friends just got married. We had some Wyoming football. Tell me a little bit.
Well, to start off, congratulations again to Haley and Elijah Halliburton. Crazy weekend, crazy weekend. I'm still feeling it right now. With my high school that I work at, John F. Kennedy, with our homecoming coming up in a few days here, working on a bunch of stuff the past couple of days, and then adding a crazy weekend with my friends. It's been a lot of fun. Hurting, tired. It was awesome though. It was really fun, and I really appreciate those moments where we're able to come together and reminisce about a lot of things that we've gone through together, and then also talk about all the cool things that we're doing in that next phase of our life after the game. And it's hard sometimes because those moments, those memories, a lot of it, what people don't know is that a lot of those memories come from practice, come from times in the locker room, even after the game. And the games were fun and there were big moments, but there was a lot of things that led up to it. And even after that, you look back to, and, we'll talk a lot more on this podcast about some of those experiences. But man, it was fun. It was fun. So shout out to them. Had an awesome weekend. Zane, what did you have going on this weekend?
So this weekend we didn't do much. My wife and I we went down to a state park here in Delaware, and actually did some kayaking. So that was a lot of fun. And then we just watched some college football yesterday. I'm doing homework every day again for this doctorate. I'm back to the grind of it all. So
Right, right.
doing homework every day, planning, grading, getting back into the swing of things. So mine was not quite as fun filled as yours, but that's okay. Obviously, the grind of it all, you can have some fun. So I'm excited to talk a little football with you. Obviously, Wyoming Cowboys get the W against the Northern Iowa Panthers. They end up winning that game 31-7. A sold out crowd there in Laramie, Wyoming. The gold out. Jamari, really quick, you've had the privilege of playing in front of some sold out crowds in Laramie, Wyoming in the fall when the weather is crisp, the weather is beautiful. What is that atmosphere like? Because for me, from a fan perspective, and as somebody that worked in college athletics, I'm not sure there's a better place in sports. Obviously, I'm very biased, but to me, Laramie is very, very hard to beat.
Yeah, Zane, I agree with that. The love that you feel in that environment is very hard to describe. You feel the energy, you feel the support, the love, the excitement. And it's really cool to see that there's a lot of traditions that carry on. When I was watching the game, something that I saw that it made me, I'm trying to figure out the word to use, but maybe sentimental is the word. That saw the beer
Yep.
snake with the cups. When I saw that, you know, it brought me back. It's like a small thing. And those of you that's been to the games, you know what we're talking about. But there's a lot of students there, right, that I've had or taught when I taught at Cheyenne East that are there. And they're sophomores, juniors, some even seniors carrying on those traditions. So it's it's hard to describe, but it's an amazing feeling. So it was awesome for it to start off that way and to be such a dominant win. So yeah, I felt like it was really beautiful to watch, and even just how the game started. That's something that I was curious to ask you about. Right, getting into the game, us starting off on offense, and the tempo that we had. I want to just get into that real quick and talk to you about how do you feel about just the start of the game, offensive play in general. What are your thoughts?
So I thought we had a lot of really good things, right?
Hmm.
Offensively, if we look at the stats, 17 to 23 from Kaden Anderson, 167 yards, 2 touchdowns. So very efficient. Um, right now we'll have a conversation about him. He goes out with injury uh a little bit later in that game. I did some research. Maybe the news has come out, maybe I just couldn't find it, but we still don't know. To me, obviously analysts can't put out this information. I could put this information out there because we're amateur analysts. It looked like he was grabbing his throwing hand. And for those of you that maybe didn't watch the game, it was a cornerback blitz. The running back was running out in the flat, missed the blitz, and he just got crunched. I mean, it was a hard hit. It was a clean hit. I don't want to say anything negative about Northern Iowa, but it was a hard hit. He ended up going out. And he was replaced by Chris Sims, who went 3 for 3 for 23 yards, 4 carries for 18 yards. Jamari, did you get a chance? Did you see that hit and
Yeah.
kind of anything you could bring, maybe what you saw from there?
Yeah, I think that whenever you get a cat blitz or a corner blitz, defenses do a really good job of disguising. It's something that you don't see very often. And what I mean by that is it's a timing play. Defenses and defensive coordinators, they're going to figure out the perfect time to call that play. It's not like something that you run regularly, like a inside backer blitz or even an outside backer blitz, sometimes even safety. So it's all about the timing, and I think they did a really good job at it. And like you said, you don't want to take anything away from them, but it's scary. I think that's the biggest thing that I thought about, because even though a lot of us are fans and we want our teams to win and we want guys to be okay, we're human beings at the end of the day. Caden's a human being. He has a life, he has a family. And so whenever I see hits and injuries like that, that's where my mind goes, because it's at the end of the day, playing the game is a privilege, and it's so much more than just a game, right? It's don't want to take away from the significance and what it means to people, but very scary, very scary. So I'm just hoping that he's able to recover, which I'm pretty sure he will. By the time, as we're recording this, we don't have specific updates, but I'm sure when this comes out, there will be some more information on what's going on with him, and just being able to rally around him, give him encouragement, and then also just be able to pour a lot of love and support into Sims. He was 3 for 3, 23 yards, 4 carries for 18 yards. So being able to have something go through the net, if you will, and have a little success for that backup quarterback, I think is really going to be important going into this next game.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out to fans is, post game, they got a number of player quotes. Jay Mike talked about it, Chris Durr talked about it. All of those guys have a lot of confidence in Sims, or in Landon Sims, not Chris Sims, excuse us, in Landon Sims. Um, he is somebody they have a lot of faith in. Obviously, we got a small glimpse of his game. To me, looked very comfortable, especially being mobile. They threw a ton of pressure at him the second he came into the game, which was the right call, right? From UNI's perspective, starting quarterback goes out. You want to bring a lot of pressure to the backup. He handled it well. But yeah, like you said, a lot of love to Sims, Landon Sims, and then a lot of love to Caden Anderson. Let's talk about these running backs. I did not realize how deep we were at the running back position. This is insane. And
Yeah.
obviously, the team has been commenting on this for a while. They said, "Hey, we've got guys." Sam Scott was just the only one that played. Um, Teron Kelman, Tote Harris, as they were calling him, and then Sam Scott. I mean, Teron Kelman had 87 yards on 7 carries. Tote Harris had 61 yards on 8 carries with a touchdown. Sam Scott had 58 yards for a touchdown on 8 carries. We're talking about well over 100 yards between three guys on not that many carries. Jamari, that's gotta be huge, knowing that you have that depth that you can spread around, and that it's just a nightmare for defenses. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're able to spread the love, spread the wealth, it makes it harder to game plan for teams because usually if you had a team that maybe had two or three key guys you focus on and you game plan around it and have other guys beat you. But when you have multiple guys who are able to get it done, it keeps you a little bit more honest and have to play things a little bit more straight up. And that's always something that's going to give you a tremendous advantage, right? Slowing down that defense. And I think that's something that they want to continue, right? Being able to spread it around, being able to give different guys looks because now anybody can pop off. And I think that's something that was really cool to see. And even from the jump, I don't know if you noticed right away, even though the opening drive didn't result in a score, it was the pace, the sense of urgency. We're going from the run to the pass. Different guys are getting involved early. I think that's also something that is really important that people who don't play might not understand is how important it is to get guys involved in early on and get a rhythm. So I think that's something that is really, I mean, that's something that we need to continue and being able to continue to execute at a high level when people's numbers are called. I think they did a good job of that.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, just to go right back to people getting involved early and often, John Michael Gillenborg, arguably one of the best tight ends in the country. He we finally saw him pop a little bit. And I don't say that in a mean way, Vance. I mean, he just hasn't really been present the way we were anticipating. So for him to go 5 catches, 65 yards and a touchdown, you still had Chris Durr involved, 4 catches, 54 yards and a touchdown. And we had 5 other guys, I believe, all with a reception and over 10 yards. So we are talking a ton of activity all across the offensive side of the ball. And granted, this is UNI. This is what the team needed to see against an FCS opponent. Get as many guys hands on the ball, let them feel what it's like to be in this game atmosphere, and kind of come out firing. So,
Right.
Jamari, let's jump over to the defensive side of the ball. Uh, who stood out to you from the defensive side of the ball, and kind of, I guess, what did you like about the defense? Because again, I think they had a really strong game.
Yeah. So first, I want to give a shout out to Andrew Johnson. He played for Cheyenne Central. And when I first started coaching there, he had just finished or just graduated and he was getting ready to play in Wyoming. And to see how far he's come along since then, because this was a few years ago, and just watching him play and how much growth he's made from working on the scout to actually being like one of the key guys, I just want to give him a big shout out. It was a really proud moment just being able to see him have a game like that, have a sack. So that was really something that stood out to me. But the linebacker play in general, I just think that the linebackers are playing at a pretty high level. Um, Turnover margin, right? That's something that we talked about last week, and we clearly won that battle. And I just think, I mean, I shout out at the linebackers in general, just from a tackle and interception standpoint. They like when you have some really good backers who can play the run and pass pretty well, I mean, it makes it a really hard team to beat. And so being able to be ball hogs, but also being able to make good, clean tackles, that's something that, and it's like I may have a little bias because, my linebacker background, but those backers, I think that those were the standouts to me. Just even when you think about from last week to this week, um, they continue to step up their play each week. And so it's like different guys all the time. It's not just the same guys, to your point, not just on offense, but on defense as well. You have multiple guys, Tyrese Boss, Braden Johnson, um, Enoch. I don't know if I'm saying his last name right. Is it Samana? The Sabana? I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly,
I was gonna
but
say Sabana. Yeah.
maybe.
Regardless, great game. Great,
But
great
there's
game.
just a bunch of guys out, not even just the linebackers. Like I said, making important plays, timely plays, and it's coming from all over. And I think that that's something that is going to continue to help us as we get later into the season, just because guys will have injuries as we see, guys will get bruised up. And what a lot of fans don't know is that a lot of those guys usually have some pretty significant bumps and bruises that they play through. We might not know about it or hear about it unless it was something significant, but there's a lot that goes into a game week to get guys ready. And so the fact that all of these guys are making plays, extremely critical as we get closer into conference play.
Yeah, and again, you got to a lot of the big names, but I just want to shout out 59 receiving yards on 29 carries. That just speaks volume to the defensive line. As far as Northern Iowa receiving went, they had 16 catches for 111 yards. So we're talking being able to affect every single aspect. Now, again, there is a talent disparity between UNI, and UNI fans don't come after us, right? There is a difference between FBS and FCS, but I think Wyoming showed what they needed to show, both defensively and offensively. Also want to shout out our offensive line. I didn't give them enough love last time. 189 yards on 37 carries and 2 touchdowns. That's huge for the offensive line. So shout out to those guys. Let's talk a little bit of special teams. One frustration that the fans had, and we knew it was coming. We had, I want to say, 9 penalties in the first half. Whereas last game we had 7 penalties total. We ended up finishing up with 13 penalties for 115 yards. Obviously, we saw a little bit of, I don't want to say it was discipline, but maybe a little bit of aggressiveness, right? First home game, I'm sure there was some nerves. Last week they played in front of 9,000 fans. This week they played in front of 25,000 fans. So obviously I'm sure there was a lot more nerves, but anything to add from that standpoint, Jamari, or maybe even jump right into special teams for us?
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll adjust the penalty part first, then lead into special teams, because you saw that in the first drive. You saw that in the first drive. You saw it a lot in the first half. I think that's going to be something that we need to continue to address as we play teams when we're hurting, we're tired, we're in the middle of the season, and the competition only continues to rise as the stakes continue to rise. And we still got to execute and have mental discipline, toughness in those scenarios. And I think that was something that hurt us a lot offensively. It was something that it was a thing last week. And now you're starting to see it defensively, special teams. And so that's something that's going to have to clean up, because the better the team you play, the margin for error becomes so much smaller. So that's something I think overall as a team that needs to clean up, because when you think about it, we look at things like offense, defense, but on special teams, there's guys from both sides, a lot of the same players. There's a lot of the same players that have a lot of playing time on offense and defense that are on that same units. So when I look at that, I think of more so not just, hey, who are the offensive guys and defensive guys, but as a team, that needs to be a bigger point of emphasis. Coach Savell, in a post-game interview, he also mentioned that and talked about level of execution needs to be better. So I think overall, that's going to be something that needs to continue to get better. And I feel like it took a step backwards. So that's something that's going to have to continue to improve, because when you look at the score and the stat sheet, you're like, hey, we did really well. But those are the things that sneak up on you and prevent you from winning a tough matchup. What I will say, we used to have this statistic I don't remember the exact number. I remember the range, but not the number to the exact number. But there was a statistic our coach used to say, one of our special team coaches, his name was Coach Coop. And he said that there was this crazy statistic, like over 80% of the time there's a block punt, you have a significant chance of winning the game. field position is the key when it comes to special teams. And when you get a block punt, it changes the momentum, not just the field position. And there's something psychologically that happens when punt gets blocked. So when that happened, right before half, that was something that told me, like, okay, the guys are dialed in, and to your point, aggressive, but we just have to be able to execute it and be more disciplined. So I think that overall, I feel more encouraged about the contributions on special teams. But to that point, we have to continue to work on discipline because, again, when the competition rises and we get later in the season, the stakes are higher. Those mistakes are going to be the difference between a win and an L. So I think that's something that is going to be really significant in just paying attention to those of you out there who don't pay attention to special teams that much. That's something to really pay attention to. And even um, field goal, right? We missed a field goal early on. I believe it was the first quarter. Um, Again, that can be a difference between a W and an L, just something that small. So I know a lot of people sometimes check out with that, but I really encourage people to pay attention to that. Um, my question to you, Zane, when we look at penalties in general, what do you think, or how do you think the team can reduce penalties moving forward, or what do you think just from like a fan's perspective? Because I'll get into it from a player's perspective.
So I'll even say, from a fan perspective, yes, but I think a lot of it, and you could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like a lot of it is nerves. I feel like a lot of it is live bullets.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting out there for the first time. We played a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to get a lot of young people experience. And so I think a lot of that can contribute. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this week's going to be tough. We're going to be playing a ranked Utah team in Laramie.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to capitalize on absolutely every single mistake that you make. And they want those sudden changes in momentums, block punts, and things like that you were describing. Um, I think you're absolutely right. I think it really comes down to live bullets, but like you said, holding yourself accountable to those sudden changes, to those penalties, and not just letting them uh, fall off your shoulders, so to speak.
Right.
Learn from them, don't forget them, type of
Right.
thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree, man. I agree. I think that when you look at, I think about practice. I think that in practice, I know that it's going to be a big point of emphasis. And I know that that's going to be something that the coaches address pretty frequently, playing with different snap counts from a scout perspective and from just the first team perspective. And I think they're going to challenge those guys. I think that as competitors too, right? We want to challenge ourselves and hold our teammates accountable. So I definitely think it's going to be something that gets addressed. When you're tired, being able to focus is where it becomes challenging. And so as guys are starting to get readjusted to playing full games, I think that there's going to be opportunities for them to hone in on their focus as they adapt to being in game shape. And I know, shout out to Coach he does a great job in the offseason getting guys in playing shape. It's just that environment, like you said, right, and being able to adjust and adapt to what's happening and being able to focus. Because I'll tell you a very quick story. And for those of you, some of you might know this, but my very first game was in 2017, and it was at Iowa. I don't remember the number. I'll have to look it up, but I've never played in front of that many people ever in my life. And I was a backup. I wasn't anticipating that I'd get in that game. And one of the people I was in front of, Josiah Hall, shout out to JoJo, he had a concussion that game early on. And so I had to back up for him on kickoff return. And the guy I had to block, big dude, assassin, the guy on the team that was just out there to just be disruptive. It was my job to block him in like a double with another fullback, Jalen Watson, at the time. I mean, I was so caught up in that moment, nervous dude. And this play was a touchback, didn't even pay attention to it. Didn't pay attention to the fact that it was a touchback, the play was over, and dude ran me over. he ran me over. I stopped my feet, and you heard people in the crowd go, "Ooh!" Like it was just. And after that, I was like, okay, I have to focus. I have to, it's my first football play. But those environments, especially when you have younger guys, it's going to be really important to let those nerves out, and then hey, we have to dial it in. And yeah, I mean, that was. I still think about that. It was. I was like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. It's so many people here.
Your
Um,
exact
yeah,
number on that game, by the way,
yeah,
65,876 people in your
yeah.
first start.
The very first away
Hey, your very
in
first start
Iowa.
away, Kinnick Stadium in
Oh
Iowa
my
City,
gosh.
Iowa. That
Yeah,
I remember watching that game. I was working for athletics at the time. And so I was sitting at home on the couch, right? The couch podcast. Here we go.
yeah,
But on the couch, I was watching, and I remember thinking to myself, "That's a big stadium, and that thing is full." So yeah,
yeah,
that was quite the atmosphere.
yeah. I agree, man. It was pretty crazy. Um, with that being said, next week we got the Utes, Utah, right?
The Utes.
I'm pretty sure, right? Are they 25 right now?
As of
Ranked
right now, they're
25?
25. Obviously, we're
25.
right before the new rankings come out. So they had a nice win this week. We'll see if they move up or stay the same. But right now,
25. So 2-0, beat UCLA. But what I'm seeing here is 43-10. And from my understanding, is their offense. I mean, our defense got their hands full this week. What could you tell us about what to expect for the Utes offense, and things that we need to consider this week?
so right now, I will preface this with saying I don't want to smack talk anybody. In my opinion, UCLA is not a good football team. They're 0-2 right now. I believe they just lost to New Mexico yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cal Poly, an FCS school, they beat 63-9. So truthfully, we don't know Utah against a good defense. And in my opinion, University of Wyoming is a good defense. I mean, you look at our last two games, we're very statistically, we're really, really good. However, you could also say we haven't played that great of an offense yet either. So with that, you got to kind of go back to what the AP voters are saying. They're ranking them 25th. My guess is they're a very good team. Now, Devin Dampier, I hope I'm saying his name right. He's completing almost 80% of his passes right now, 5 touchdowns, no picks. And their running game is supposed to be even better. So, from a statistic standpoint, like you said, Wyoming is going to have their hands full. Anything you can add to that, Jamari? Because obviously, we're coming in, we're going to face, in my opinion, the true, real offense, first real offense that we're going to face this season that's going to give us fits. And
Mm-hmm.
I hope Utah is going to face the first real defense that's going to give them fits.
Right, right. So going back to your original point when you said, "Hey, I don't know if UCLA is a good team," right? The last couple schools that they played is maybe not up to par. But when you look at the score of those games, if you think about games that they are supposed to win, if that's how people view it, right? Hey, they should win this game. And you look at the margin and you look at the scores, right? I think that indicates even if their opponent isn't viewed as, a tough matchup, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And they're executing at a high level. They have a team that's disciplined enough to not play down to whatever team they're playing to. They're playing their brand of football. So when I look at what we need to do, right, I think the very first thing is we have to look at what are the things that we can actually control. We can control penalties, right? For the most part, pre-snap penalties. Those are things that we are able to control. And we have to be a much more disciplined football team if we want to be able to be as competitive as we like. So I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing is good teams are going to have success, right? Good teams are going to have success. And I think that sometimes what happens when we're playing an opponent that's perceived to be really good, when they have success, there's doubt sometimes that creep in with people, or there's this thing inside that's like, yeah, I don't know, it might be a long night. That can't happen. It can't happen. We have to be able to stay level. We can't get too high when things get well or things go well for us. And we can't go too low if things go well for them. We have to understand that there's ebbs and flows to the game. And whoever can stay the most disciplined and stay the most level, I think will be able to come out on top. And so I think that we have the guys, we have the personnel to be able to not only compete with them, but to be dominant. But that has to happen if that can only happen if we have the right mentality. If we don't have the right mentality, especially if things go wrong or if things are just going well, we can't take our foot off the gas. We have to make sure that we're staying level and dialed in all 4 quarters, all 4 quarters. And so, skip from a schematic standpoint, obviously they are a relatively balanced school. So again, it has to be physicality, it has to be rallying to the football, it has to be discipline, it has to be able to capitalize when when they make mistakes. And so I think the biggest thing is what is the message that's being communicated in the locker room this week, right? And I believe that with the culture that's established with the Pokes, is that they're excited. I think the guys that are really excited, and I think that they welcome the challenge. I think that it's going to be important again to make sure that they're dialed in and they understand that we can't get too high, we can't get too low. We just have to stay in the fight. So I think that's my biggest point of emphasis is that we just have to understand that they'll have success, they'll have their plays, but we'll have ours too, and we have to understand that it's going to be a 4 quarter game.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back a little bit to us as educators and us as coaches, right? The first
Hmm.
thing we tell a kid when they come to us and they say, "Oh, Mr. Moore, oh, Mr. Alley, I don't get this. I don't want to do this. I've never been good at this." First thing we tell them, well, the first thing you got to change is your mentality. And I think you're absolutely right. When you're playing a team like Utah, when you're
Hmm.
playing a team like Colorado, when you're playing a team that's supposed to be quote unquote better than you, you don't want to beat yourself before the game even starts, right? And that goes
Right.
back to even coaching speak. I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. Jamari, let's go to our score prediction and then narrow down your keys to the game. Give me one of them. Who do you think's going to come out on top of this game? Give me a score prediction, and what do the Cowboys have to do to make this a
Okay. So first, what I look at is the score. They're going to get points. They're going to score points. I think that's something that does. I don't think that's a knock against our defense. I think that they're just a really good offensive team as well. So I see it as a 24-21 game going to the Pokes. I think it's going to be close. That's why that margin of error, right? I think that the guys will be pretty dialed in. We're at home, which I also think is going to be extremely helpful. And I think that's going to give us a big boost. I think some of the specific keys to the game is understanding number one, offensively, that they're going to pressure a lot, right? If Anderson isn't in the game, whether he is or not, right, and understanding that he might be limited or working through something, they're going to pressure him. They're going to try to make him feel it, right? Because what fans have to understand is that from a week to week basis, once you have an initial injury, it's really then about managing it, nurturing it as best as you can, and just getting yourself feeling as good as you can for the next game. And unfortunately, sometimes the best you can do is make it feel a little better, but it's not going to be completely fixed. So they're going to pressure. So with that being said, we have to make sure that we're taking control of the line of scrimmage early on. Send a message early on. Be really aggressive with the run and making sure that we aren't turning the ball over. We don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot. I think the ball security is going to be really key, whether it's Sims, whether it's Anderson. We're going to have to really make sure that we're dialed in that area. And then as far as when I think about defensively, like we just talked about, we have to be able to create turnovers, right? We need to be able to be aggressive and again try to win that turnover margin. That's going to be really important. They're going to come out and feel like, hey, we have this. They're going to have a lot of confidence, but we have to be able to continue to be physical and punch them in the mouth. I think that's going to stun them because teams like that, they might say, hey, this is Wyoming. We should win this game. We're not too worried. But once they realize, okay, these guys are actually here to play, it's going to stun them. They will recover, but I think while they're stunned, we have to be able to really put our foot on the gas because then it makes it much harder for them to recover versus, hey, you know what? All right, let's pick it up and we allow them. So I think those are going to be some really specific, detailed things that they need to focus on. And obviously, special teams is going to be really important, creating really good field position early on. Fast start to special teams. We have to be able to work with shorter fields and give them longer fields. So those, I think, are going to be some of the biggest keys when I look at Wyoming being able to get a win over them.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think every single one of those is going to be huge. For me, I am also going to go with a Wyoming Cowboy win. Obviously, I think we can get this win 21-17 Wyoming Cowboys. Listen, I think we take a little bit of a page out of UNI's playbook. What they tried to do with us is they wanted to take some wind out of our sails, so to speak. They wanted to bleed the clock. They wanted to run the ball a lot. I think we can do a similar thing to them. We've got 3 running backs back there that were
Mm-hmm.
breaking off well over 5 yards per carry. I think you lean on those guys, an offensive line that has not only been good, they've been dominant the last 2 weeks. And I think you go ahead, take the wind out of the sails of this high-powered offense, lean on that running back depth, and allow your home field advantage to work for you. Allow those big moments when you do get a touchdown, when you do get a field switching play, allow
Mm-hmm.
the crowd to really boost you guys, and I think they're going to find a lot of success.
Mm-hmm.
Jamari, just like last week, fans that are watching on YouTube, this is where I'm going to throw up the Mountain West games that are happening this week. What I want you to do, pick one that is of interest to you. I also have one that I want to talk about and tell us a little bit why you're interested about it and maybe who you think is going to come out on top.
Okay, so one of the things that in our pre-production we had talked about a little bit, Air Force and Utah State. So those are both rivalries between us and or between Wyoming and those teams. There's usually some type of trophy involved as well. And I think it's just really important to keep an eye on those key matchups just because they play us pretty tough from year to year. So when I get into the mindset of a player or a coach, I'm definitely paying close attention to how they're playing each other. Because overall, I think it's going to be a close game. Typically low scoring game with the style of play Air Force has. Thinking maybe 27-24 Utah State, excuse me. Home advantage, I think, is going to be something that's really important. And again, obviously, Air Force is a relatively disciplined team. And Utah State, even though they're a little bit more inconsistent, I think that home field advantage will give them the win overall because they are still so far, I believe, to be a decent team. But yeah, that's the game I think about a lot because when conference play starts, again, the margin for error and how many games. I mean, all of those games are really significant and important. It only takes one loss to be out of the race for a conference championship. So we've seen that years past where one game has cost us. So that's the one that I think about in the context of what do we take from that game as we get closer and closer to playing them.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very interesting game. Like you said, opening up that conference slate, it's going to be interesting. There's obviously you have the implications related to Mountain West standings. I think you're absolutely right. The one I'm going to go with New Mexico at UCLA, and I have a little bit of a correction from earlier. I said UCLA just lost to New Mexico. They actually just lost to UNLV, so excuse me on that. They're playing New Mexico. This one's interesting to me. New Mexico, while they are 1-1, they did get points against a good Michigan team in week one. They ended up losing that game 34-17. Um, Personally, I think New Mexico going into UCLA, I think UCLA is going to try and make a statement. I think they're going to try to stop the bleeding, so to speak. So I do think UCLA is going to come out with a win in this one. As far as the score goes, I think it's going to be pretty tight, tighter than most people realize.
Mhm.
I would say probably somewhere around 28-21, 28-17. But I do have UCLA coming out with that win. New Mexico, like I said, they haven't played bad. They got a good win against Idaho State. It was a pretty close game against Idaho State, but it is one that I think is interesting. Um, let's get to the fun one, man. We've got our couch question of the week, and this week it is mine. If you guys saw the clip, me talking about playing left bench or maybe right bench, we'll see what's open. So this week we'll get into that. Jamari, if you could invite any Wyoming alumni, and they could be an athlete or anybody in general, anybody that's graduated from the University of Wyoming, to sit on the couch with us for an episode, who would it be and why are you going with them?
So I have two. I have two that comes to mind. The first one that comes to mind would be Logan Wilson. The reason why I say Logan Wilson, one, he's a Wyoming guy, loves Wyoming, loves the community. I think people would really love to hear more from him. I would ask him a couple of things, right? Because one, him and his wife Morgan, they just started their own podcast. I think, and forgive me if I'm getting it wrong. I think it's called the Family Playbook.
I think it's something like that. I
I
can't
think it's
remember.
something
Yeah.
around that. I'll definitely have it correct the next time that we get on. But they just started their podcast, and they talk about essentially things around just the life that they live and being parents. And I think that's for me. I think the everyday lives of people that we see on TV or games. I think that's really fascinating to me, and I think people would really love to really get an inside look of that and or in a little bit closer to home. So that's something. Again, you all should check out their podcast. I love them both. They're awesome. I went to school with Morgan as well. She went to school with us obviously as well. So you all should definitely check that out. Really cool. And also just because him and I were linebackers together, right? And there's a lot of behind the scenes things that I think that people will find really interesting about his journey, how he got there, just some of the things that we've had to do together. There's a couple of times he's had to run because of me. We might be able to talk to him about that. Yeah, it's a couple of times when I was a freshman, he had to run because of me. Hopefully we'd be able to tell that story another time. And then the other person I think would be Josh Allen. I think that one would be a good one because, and people probably see it all a lot with him on the Bills, but he has a very strong personality. Like he's hilarious. He's very funny. I think he would be I think again, it would be less about football and just him as a person. He's a very funny person, fun person to be around. And so I think that, again, seeing that personality show in a different way outside of just the football context, I think that would be really cool. And then we'd have to talk about just a couple of our experiences off the field and just some of the fun things that we got into. I think that would be something that fans would be interested in and everything like that. And so that's my answer. Those two guys. What about you, Zane? Who would you have on? Who would you have sit with us on the couch?
Well, first of all, my one claim to fame, I did play football against Logan Wilson. Now this was in
Okay.
seventh grade, so grain of salt there. But no, I mean, yeah, Logan Wilson, born and raised in Casper, and I mean,
Hmm.
Wyoming's a small state, right?
Yeah.
But teams travel well. When you're growing up in Wyoming, you saw it with East. You are going to
Hmm.
play just about every team in the state. And then Josh Allen, you got a lot more experiences with him, but like me working in athletics, I did get to have experiences with both of those guys. I think both of them would be phenomenal to have conversations with. Josh
Right.
Allen is funny. My two, the first one you probably will disagree with because you had a lot of interaction with him, whereas I'm coming at it from the fan perspective. Coach Bull, I don't know if you feel like you're going to get a little PTSD from practice or feel like he's going to make you do some push-ups, but I think Coach Bull would be really fun. Just his pedigree, man. What he did at North Dakota State, came to Laramie. Obviously, he had some down years, but it was like Wyoming was a rocket ship, right?
Mm-hmm.
We really went down, and then we had really consistent levels of success under Coach Bull, and I think he would be a fun guy to talk to. I love that old school mentality. I love the grit that's associated with those old school football coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And then a new one, Sundance Wicks. Every Wyoming fan should know who Sundance Wicks is, but if you do not, he's the current Wyoming men's basketball coach. He's out of Gillette, Wyoming, so Campbell County boy, just like me. I love that guy's energy. He is nothing but an energizer bunny. And from what you hear, every interview with him, I've listened to several podcasts with him. He's so consistent. Like you can meet a lot of people that are full of energy in 1 minute and then not the next. I don't know if I've ever seen Sundance Wicks not full of energy.
Right.
So
Right.
those are my two guys. Yeah, what do you think about those two, Jamari? Would you be okay with those
So
ones?
I would be okay, especially I disagree. I don't think I would be upset with Coach Ball. There's a cool story that I want to share briefly about Coach Ball, and this happened in
Definitely not
2020.
upset, by the way. Definitely not upset. I just didn't want to give you any PTSD from
No,
push-ups or
no,
anything.
no. Here's something that happened, and it's stories like this that really stick out to me. So if I'm painting the scene, it's 2020. And we're in the middle of the pandemic, and we're in this weird situation where we don't know if we'll have a season. We're trying our best to have a season, but things are pretty tough right now. And there is a lot of cultural upheaval, if you will, unrest, because this was around the time that George Floyd had been murdered. And there was a lot of protesting that was happening in Laramie, which number one was something that was it was an interesting time because I didn't know what to expect in Laramie, just because I'm not from there, right? I'm not from Wyoming. I'm from Chicago. So I just wasn't sure how people would respond. And 2 weeks go by, it's protests everywhere. It's a lot of chaos that's happening. And we hadn't heard from Coach Bull. So the first question that I had was, I wonder what he thinks about it all. And some people would come up and talk to me and would be like, hey, like, do you think he'd let us protest? Do you think he'd be worried about us catching COVID? And, it was a big question mark. But he had scheduled a team meeting with the first group of guys that came in, and we met in the indoor practice facility. From there, man, he had his mask on, he walked in, he stood up on some, I don't want to say a podium, he stood up on something where we all could hear him. And he talked about it all. And he said, hey, listen, there's a lot of stuff happening in the country right now. There's a lot of protesting. And he made a call to the guys. He said, hey, listen, you all need to really be aware of what's happening. A lot of people are struggling. And he talk directly to our non-colored athletes and teammates, say, hey, listen, if you aren't there supporting your brothers on this team and asking them what's going on, or, asking them what ways can I be supportive, shame on you, man, just I've respected Coach Bull for a while, but it went to a whole new level that he didn't care about the COVID or anything. Obviously, he wanted to do the right thing and make sure we were safe. But he's like, listen, you guys need to go down and protest. You guys need to really stand up and use your voices. And then around that time, right, he's hosting these meetings with law enforcement, and he's calling out the police in Laramie, in that town, because he's like, hey, most of my Black players have been pulled over for no reason. He'd go around and ask us questions. Hey, have you been pulled over within the last 30 days? And so he really was involved with a lot of the social injustice that was happening around that time and making sure we felt heard and seen. Dude, he was down there protesting. He was demonstrating, taking a knee. Anybody seen Coach Bull? He walked pretty slow. Not the most mobile guy, but I mean, he was so involved. He was extremely involved. He listened to us. He gave us opportunities to make sure that we were in these meetings with police officers and asking questions and a podium. That was one of the coolest things by far that I experienced with Coach Ball was, again, like, he's just extremely vocal, encouraging us, and not just encouraging us. He was out there. I remember walking with him. I think it was 3rd Street, right? A protest on 3rd Street. He's down there on a knee demonstrating, sitting down in the street. And that's something that I know not all coaches were doing around that time. And that's not how all programs were operating around that time. So that was a very like transformative and pivotal moment for me with my relationship with Coach Bull, because he could have been like, hey guys, I know you guys care, but we got a season to think about and we don't want you guys to catch COVID. He could have went that route, but he didn't, right? He really stood firm to say, hey guys, like, you got to do what's right. You have to be able to show that you care about your brothers and really understand what's happening. Yeah, Coach Ball, he's great, man. And I love to like talk to him again about that time. The other thing that's much shorter is that prior to that, a lot of times he'd walk up to me. He always asked me all these questions about Chicago, which I always thought was funny. Hey, man, what's happening in Chicago these days? Like, he'd always just ask me about Chicago and just stuff that's happening there. He paid attention to a lot. So that's why Coach Ball would be an awesome guest for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see here. So, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap it up. We got to our couch question of the week. Remember, if you want to hear us talk about anything, if you want to hear us bring up any specific questions, go ahead and comment on YouTube, social media, message us, do whatever you got to do. We would love to hear from you guys. Jamari, any final thoughts? Obviously, Wyoming coming off of a fantastic win against UNI. We've got a really big game this week against the Utes. That game is in Laramie. If you're anywhere in the state, guys, please get down there. I know the crowd is always huge. I think it's already about to be a sellout, but if it's not, make sure you get down there and go support this team. Did you get a chance to see any of the upgrades to the west side of the stadium, Jamari? They were really highlighting them during the game.
I did get a chance to see it a little bit. I want to go and see it in person. I plan on trying to make it to a couple games this season out in Laramie. Just got to plan out the logistics. It'd probably be closer to October, November, but yeah, I think that it's cool that they're constantly investing in the area, in the facilities, all of these different things. And because when I had first got there, it was when I first got there, it looked so different, and just to see where it is now is just like it's awesome to see from the scoreboard to the Hap C to the actual turf. Like, there's a lot of investment that's going into the community, and I think that's really important that continues to happen. So I'm just happy to see that it's still growing and they're not stopping.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And shout out the guys I used to work with. Tyson Drew, he was my old boss
Mm-hmm.
there in facilities. That facility looks fantastic. They put so much
Mm-hmm.
work into game day operations, getting everything ready to go, getting everything where it needs to be. So shout out those guys. It's an amazing crew, an amazing group of people that does everything you can. So fans, make sure you're helping them out, throwing trash away, doing anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've got pretty much everything wrapped up. We thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. This was week 3, hanging out with us on the Couch Experts podcast. Anything to wrap it up, Jamar?
Hey, if you all have any couch questions of the week that you want us to do, please comment on our videos, YouTube, Patreon. Send us a message on our Instagram, TikTok, whatever pages we have. Please reach out to us and let us know if there's anything specific you want us to cover, talk about. Shout out to all the guys, and go Pokes. That's what I got.
Go Pokes. Powder River. Thank you guys.
Let her buck.